One trend I've been noticing in recent years is everybody's tendency to have things raw, and I blame bias for it. On our channel, we usually cook ingredients the opposite of raw, beautifully charred, but there have been a few times when we stepped into new realms of dessert, but medium rare donut is my new interest. But medium rare cornbread is gonna be a thing. Today we're gonna make the world's favorite pastries, taste and rate their batters. I don't mind salmonella, but I do care about the texture, so instead of baking, we'll sous vide these batters to get them to 165 where everything should be well combined. Starting with a fudge brownie. You might have expected chocolate chip cookie first, but come on, we already know that's the best, so gotta take on the spirit of experimentation. We've made brownies so many times on this channel just cause every YouTuber claims that they have the best brownie recipe, just like every pizza shop in New York claims to have the best slice. But objectively though, I think the best brownie I've ever tasted was the 100-hour brownie from Alvin. Tasty recipes are usually not that tasty, but today we're using one just cause it's the easiest. The first step is to melt half a cup of butter and 4 ounces of chocolate in the microwave, and then for the dry ingredients, we'll do 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar and half a cup of brown. The recipe only called for granulated, but I gotta have my dark brown that goes down. What is this, you ask? That's melted butter, but what is this machine next to the bowl? FutureCanoe, where is your commitment to the war against machines? But there's a rule on this channel stating that I do whatever I want. But in all seriousness, this step is called creaming the sugar. We gotta beat the sugar into the butter and the egg to ensure like a smoother texture later. The creaming process takes a little while. You can cream it by hand on the couch if you want, but I'm a little tired right now, so I'm gonna just use a hand beater. Beating the eggs into the sugar mixture is the most important because this is what's gonna give it that fudgy texture. You wanna keep going at it till this white sticky goo comes up. We'll add in the 4 ounces of melted chocolate from earlier, 3/4 cup AP flour, 1/4 cup cocoa powder. We'll fold everything together until smooth and top it off with another 4 ounces of chocolate. I always put more chocolate than that because ounces are supposed to be underestimated just like inches are supposed to be overestimated. I was gonna sous vide it like planned, but I changed my mind. I'm gonna use a loaf pan that's kind of deep so that baking it as usual will mean that the middle will be rare. Another way to say it is that we're relying on the thick of it. We baked it at 350 for 20 minutes, and because of the thick of it, the inside should be barely cooked. It looks like one of those really moist chocolate cakes. Let's flip it over. It's not that nice. I want the top layer of chocolate and crust to be shown. You know, I do care about the presentation sometimes. So we'll take a paper towel on our hand, flip it out, and put it back down. You know, I just realized a loaf of brownie is not a piece of meat. I tried to show the best side, but it just falls apart into a shit-like substance. As much as it describes my dating life, I guess it sometimes happens in baking too, but it doesn't affect what we're doing today, which is tasting medium rare desserts. Let's give it a taste and rate 1 through 10. Again, I told you guys this before. This reminds me of when I was little. My uncle, without me knowing, he ordered a lava cake for me as a surprise. I was so impressed by the difference in texture, which is something we're getting here. Even richer and more satisfying than a lava cake, I'd say. Rare brownie tastes better than a well done brownie, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I love creme brulee because I love the word brulee. Originally for this video I had planned to do creme brulee, ice cream, and maybe like a vanilla custard or something. And when I looked into the recipes I realized all of them are the same. Apparently in French cooking this dessert mixture is just called a creme anglaise, without the voice crack of course. We call it vanilla sauce in America. The most basic of this recipe requires 2 egg yolks, a cup of cream, and 1/4 cup of sugar. And then we'll just season with salt and dessert MSG. Now normally we'll put this in a pan with cornstarch where we'll put it on a double boiler and gently heat it till it's thick. And for creme brulee we need to bake in a water bath or something. Don't ask me, I never made it successfully. And today to get that medium rare doneness, we'll put it into a Ziploc bag, seal it as tightly as we could, name it, and put it in a sous vide for at least an hour. Here's our half-cooked creme brulee. It still feels pretty liquidy and it is really warm and nice. I think this might be the definition of coating the back of the spoon. I always see chefs on the internet talk about this consistency. I guess I just never really cared. Time to taste the creme without the brulee. my god. How can I say this? It tastes like when your freezer breaks and your ice cream melts, and because you're sad and your roommate's a psychopath, puts it into the microwave for a couple minutes so it gets thick. This is crazy, y'all. Ice cream soup. I think the right way to approach this is either to dip Oreos, put it in coffee, or just straight up a couple shots of rum if my dad's back. I still prefer creme brulee though, so 5 out of 10. Desserts only make us happy temporarily. Long-term mental health is the most important. I want to thank today's sponsor, BetterHelp. As many of you know, I've been fairly stressed for the past few months preparing for school applications. Largely because I wasn't the best student back in undergrad and have never been particularly strong at standardized testing. I can't help but feel like my academic past is holding me back from the future I envision for myself. The anxiety coupled with the long waiting period has left me feeling overwhelmed. That's when I realized that it's okay to ask for help. BetterHelp is an approachable way to start your first session of therapy. The app is easy to navigate and it helps connect you to the right therapist based on your personalized needs. In most cases, you'll usually get matched within 48 hours or less after filling out the questionnaire. You're able to choose the format most convenient for you. For example, if you're uncomfortable showing your face through an online video chat, you could go with the text or call options. Even if you don't feel like it's the right fit, you have access to over 30,000 therapists that you can switch to with no additional cost. If you think therapy might benefit your mental health, click this link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/FutureCanoe or choose FutureCanoe during sign up. You'll get a special discount off your first month of therapy if you do. Remember how before I got those expensive non-stick pans, I was never able to cook an egg properly on this channel? Now I'm starting to feel like I would never be able to crack an egg properly either. This is gonna be a tiramisu. We've made tiramisu 3 times, so it's safe to say that I drove away all my Italian viewers. A 1/4 cup of sugar, I put a little more because I'm addicted, a little salt, mascarpone from Vermont. This is so much better than the ones from Minnesota. It's a little softer and creamier, so without letting it sit in room temp, we should be able to mix it pretty thoroughly. In a real recipe though, we should be doing this step over a double boiler. Seeing all these ingredients and ratios, I'm starting to suspect that the tiramisu is just a knockoff creme anglaise with high caffeine content. Now that's just the batter. What about the flavor and texture of ladyfingers? I couldn't find them at my grocery store, but I got you covered. We're using Ritz crackers. If it can turn into an apple pie, it qualifies as ladyfingers. They're all just baked flour and water mixtures. And with Ritz, you have the added banned chemicals. We'll prepare, pour, seal the batter into a Ziploc bag. Doing the same process as before, 170 for an hour. The mixture is probably going to be thicker than creme brulee since we have cheese in it and stuff. It's definitely not so much a soup. It's more of a butternut squash soup. I have to say though, mascarpone, when heated up, it smells pretty good. We gotta have all the components of tiramisu before we judge it, so the final layer is gonna be some cocoa powder. The heat is definitely amplifying the smell, and when everything combines together, it's pretty pleasant actually. Even though there's more ingredients in this one and visibly thicker, I feel like it's not as flavorful as the creme brulee mixture. Just based on taste, it's not as good, but today's rating is based on whether medium rare batter tastes better than the real thing. I'm not a big fan of tiramisu, so I prefer this. I'll give it an 8.5. Never have I in my life I wake up one day and just go, I think I'm gonna go get a churl today. I never voluntarily crave it. The only time I have is from this churl joint near my apartment. Whenever I walk past it, it's always empty, so it makes me want to go in more. To a cup of water, we'll add in 2 tablespoons of sugar, some salt, 1/4 cup of oil, and a cup of flour. Alright, we ran out of flour. This is definitely a little too thin, so I'm gonna have to break out my roommate's flour. I'll fill it back up with powdered sugar. Now that we have the batter ready, it's just the base for deep frying. The complete flavor profile comes from the cinnamon sugar we're dipping in later. And since we're cooking it all together, let's just add it in now. Yay. I'm loving it. Definitely the thickest one so far turned into a literal piece of dough. I feel like this is what they used to build the Egyptian pyramid. If we let this ferment for 2 days, it might turn into sourdough. Here is our churl in its soggiest form. Let's give it a taste. I just realized most of this episode is just gonna be me mixing stuff in a bowl, and this recipe is probably the most complicated one. Starting with the cake batter of the carrot cake to 1 cup of flour, we'll add in 1/2 cup of sugar, key bump of baking soda, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of oil, bunch of cinnamon, bunch of dessert MSG. Maybe cinnamon is more like dessert MSG. Vanilla extract is more of a dessert fish sauce. We'll do 2 eggs, no shell this time, and 1/4 cup of butter, and keep mixing until you get this smooth texture. We'll take a horse carrot. They're called horse carrots not because they're big, I think it's because they were originally created to feed horses, and now they feed us and our family. Don't be discouraged though, they did the same thing to us with oatmeal, but hey, I would kill to live like a pet of the ruling class. Then we'll shred 2 carrots with a technique that I mastered back in high school. Whenever I get bullied, I just go home, let that pent up aggression out by helping my family cook. We'll add about 1.5 cups of grated carrots into the cake batter and 1/2 cup of crushed nuts. I'm just crush these nuts with my hand. And finally, the nightmare of Halloween, 1/4 cup of raisins. Kinda feels like I'm making a healthy salad from Northern California. This is why Berkeley students seems to get high all the time. So last Friday, I went out for like the first time in months. It was my friend's birthday. We did a pregame at his apartment and he had a table at a club in Tribeca. On our way there, I passed out on the Uber ride, and as soon as I got off the car, I projectile vomited into the middle of the streets of New York. Didn't even go inside, immediately went home. And I thought I dodged my own attack until the next day I woke up with my jacket and pants looking like this. To properly finish the flavor profile of a carrot cake, we gotta make a frosting to go on top of it, which is powdered sugar and cream cheese all mixed up, and then a whole cup of whipped cream until stiff peaks. We'll combine the 2 mixtures until it's thick like that. We'll decorate this up by putting down a first layer of cake. Also, could you guys take it easy in the comments? Lay on top our cream cheese frosting. The cream cheese frosting on carrot cake is probably my favorite part. It's actually a recipe of love because it looks like it's already been digested a little bit for you. Let's give it a taste. You know how a carrot cake is always good when you buy it, but in a few days it dries up and doesn't taste as good? This completely solves the problem because it cannot be more moist than this. You got a satisfying gooey batter with the sweet carrots and the slightly acidic cream cheese frosting. It's better than I expected, certainly better than it looks. I'll give this a 4 out of 10. Now, I've had my fair share of gooey white substance, but nothing is as satisfying as a dense New York style cheesecake. While Japanese bakers have the urge to make everything jiggly, but if I'm having a cheesecake, there will be no teeth involved. To 12 ounces of room temperature cream cheese, we'll beat in about 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of cream, and 1/4 cup of sour cream, both for flavor and that rich, dense texture. Then we'll add in 2 eggs and a splash of vanilla. People on the internet say that you have to add in the eggs 1 at a time. If you add in too much, the batter's gonna split like my dad. But I feel like if the speed of your mixer is high enough, it never happens. The batter already tastes good at this point, but we'll add in the final 1/4 cup of flour. What's a New York cheesecake without a buttery graham cracker crust? And to replace the buttery graham cracker crust, we're gonna use the rest of our Ritz crackers. Certainly the weirdest consistency so far. It's kind of like slime. Now that I'm scooping out of the bag, I realize the outside is significantly more cooked than the inside. I guess for a really thick batter like this, we should have cooked it for 2 hours. You know what it tastes like? It tastes like the first time I made cheesecake in my life. I couldn't wait for it to cool overnight, so I digged into it right away, from the center of course. So obviously it didn't set and it was still runny. That's when I discovered that medium rare cheesecake tastes better than regular cheesecake. I'll give this a 9 out of 10. Keep it on the low. I told you guys many times that a donut is my favorite nut, and among all the donuts, apple fritter places itself at a special place in my heart. Back in the day, I liked to finish my dinner off with an apple fritter. Just shows you how happy endings makes you sleep better. I didn't realize how ridiculous it was that I always tell my mom it's healthy because it has apples in it. Getting nutritious fruit from apple fritters, that's like saying your primary physician is Dr. Dre, with whom even apples can't keep away. This batter recipe has applesauce in it, so it's pretty special. I'm gonna list the ingredients on the screen now. We don't have to mix it too thoroughly. The baking powder is gonna activate and hydrate the rest. Now we'll take a granny, smith into little chunks, and add it into the batter. After folding them in, I wish we were doing the video last week because I have the urge to fry them up. The churl dough earlier was pretty diabolical, and this is very similar in consistency, so I'm hoping the extra ingredients and the fruits can save us here. Gotta teabag it a little bit and drop. This is pretty surprising. I expected it to be turned into a paste, but it totally became an unleavened fruit bread.
What's poppin'? Brand new whip, just hopped in. I got options. I can pass it like Stockton.
Looks like one of those bread that medieval people used to eat. And even then, people would be ashamed to whip this out during family dinners. It's a lot better than the churl one, it's just not sweet enough. But comparing this to a fried apple fritter, 2 out of 10. What are you doing with these nuts, FutureCanoe? Is for our last recipe of the day, baklava. We've made this once before on this channel and made the mistake of asking whether it's Turkish or Greek. I don't like looking at arguments, nor do I like managing comments, so I'm just gonna do what I usually do and claim it is American. That was a cup of crushed walnut, quarter cup butter, some cinnamon, quarter cup of sugar, quarter cup of water, quarter cup of honey. This seems really unhealthy. I never really thought of baklava as a caloric bomb. So here's the syrup that goes into the middle. What about the phyllo dough? That's a great question, guys, and I promise this is the last time I'm gonna answer with this. Here's our last bag of batter of the day. I'm getting very hungry. I feel like I'm on a juice cleanse that's also a dirty bulk. I think the low and slow heat extracted the oil from the walnuts and the butter. If this is what goes inside baklavas, I'm starting to not want to eat it anymore. No point to pretend to be civilized, let's just eat straight out of the bag. It tastes like the deepest flavored crunchy granola. It looks really greasy on the outside, but it doesn't taste like that. I think the honey really binded everything well together. But the most important part, the crispy phyllo, is missing, so I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10. Anyways, guys, this is the weirdest episode we've done in a while. I'll pull back a little bit of the insanity that's been going on recently. But life is about experimentation, and this channel is about pushing the limit of the human stomach. But genuinely, I hope we all learned something today. Alright, thank you.